Good afternoon, New Bedford Guide and South Coast residents. My name is Chris Resendes with a special Friday election edition. We have a great guest this afternoon, pre-election show. Former Mayor Attorney Scott Lang. Mayor Lang, as you know, is one of the more popular, knowledgeable figures in our community when it comes to politics in Greater New Bedford and the South Coast of Massachusetts. He's also connected in the Democratic National Committee as well. Mayor Lang is a wealth of knowledge in the city, and we found it an honor to be able to have him on this week prior to the election so we can discuss the elections and inform the citizens of New Bedford a little further on what they're voting for and how important their vote is. Mayor Lang, thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
Mayor Lang, previously we discussed debate and the importance of debate. You are an advocate for debate. I think you said you did 13 debates on your last election or something of that note.
2005, yes.
Yeah, and in a debate, you kind of see the true colors of a candidate because it's in the heat of the moment and the passion. They're answering and spitting back and forth, and it's not a thought-out, released idea or thought. Last night, Charlie Perry was a no-show for the final debate in the city. It was a little disheartening, to be quite honest with you. Charlie has a lot of great input and insight in the community. He's an asset to the community as a police officer. I know a lot of people in the community that respect him on a high level. But without showing up, he just gave Mayor Mitchell basically an hour to himself to sell himself some more. And I know that you feel that being an incumbent, you're actually challenging yourself during an election.
Right.
How do you feel about Charlie no-showing on this debate?
Well, let me say this first. If you're running for office and you have an opportunity to appear at any forum, I don't care if it's in someone's living room or on the debate stage, you should always take advantage of it because there'll always be something new that someone will learn about you that may in fact cause them to then consider voting for you. And also, if you're running, you're going to be a public person. You're going to be a public servant, which means you work for the people who would be watching the debate. So unless someone was ill or for some reason was unable to be at the debate, and you know, if we would find that out later, then I'd feel very badly about it. But I can tell you, if you don't show up for a debate, you're really ceding your opportunity to make your case to the people. So I don't understand that, quite frankly. And I have not talked to either of the candidates, so I wouldn't know why one would show, one wouldn't. I think earlier in the process, I think Charlie was out there making sure he went to every single forum. Late in the process, you have to redouble your efforts and make sure that you do. When I won the primary in 2005, I challenged the incumbent to a debate in each ward. So you'd say, well, if you just won, why would you challenge the incumbent? Because you want people to know where you stand, what you believe in, and make sure they're going to, A, support you. Hopefully they will. But I think it's part of the discourse in a democracy. You want candidates to debate. You want them to be appearing in front of the people. Now, I also think, if you're an incumbent, you're running against your opposition. You're also running against yourself. So hopefully Mayor Mitchell last night was able to take advantage of issues that he felt that he hadn't spoken clearly about in the past. So maybe from that perspective, it served the purpose of having people understand a little bit more about our mayor and what he's accomplished and what he hopes to accomplish. But to not have the other chair full is really something that's offensive. If you're running, you show. You don't want to run, don't worry about debating. You don't have to. You run, you debate, you show.
And it's unfortunate because Charlie has done a lot of good things for the community. I'm not here to tear him down at all for his decision not to come last night, nor do I know the exact reason for him not coming. I'm assuming that, he felt he debated enough, which I agree with you 100%. There's never enough debate.
There's no such thing.
There were people that were watching last night that probably weren't watching the other debates. So, each vote does count and each person does matter that you're representing.
Right. Chris, what was the forum?
I was just sitting across from where you're at right now, and Charlie was here, and it was Michael asking questions of both of them.
So I would think that's a great opportunity for both candidates.
It was a great opportunity. It was more of a relaxed opportunity, whereas there's no crowd to look on. It's just two gentlemen face to face with a moderator in the studio, which, as you know, was a quaint but comfortable setting.
No, this is palatial. The other thing I would say to you, though, that's important, is that if for some reason a candidate felt that they could not debate or appear to debate, then I would hope, and maybe this will still happen, that they would explain why and then ask for time and come in and do that same type of interview.
One thing I promise you is that Mike from the New Bedford Guide has not chosen sides, has not made any endorsements, nor has he had any loaded questions that would favor one candidate or the other. He's offered the opportunity to each candidate equally to be on the show, and he's afforded them all equal amount of time.
So I always, I'll go anywhere, anytime, appear, I don't care, for me, against me, whatever. I don't mind going into a hostile setting. I think it's an opportunity to learn why they might be hostile, and at the same time, and I know this is completely neutral, but what I'm saying is, you get out there and you explain your point of view. It's part of the process. You get in the ring, you face all comers. So my gut feeling on this is that that's a mistake. You take advantage of communicating.
Kind of on the same line, I was going to put this down lower on our scheduled interview. On our list is the 4-year versus the 2-year, which kind of is on the same page with what we're discussing, based on the fact that, within the 2 years rather than the 4 years, you're having these candidates out in the public selling themselves to their constituents, listening to their constituents. And now the New Bedford Forward has got enough signatures on the ballot, we discussed this previously, to change it to a 4-year term. Now, some communities do 4 years. The governorship is a totally different dynamic. Some people try to compare the two, where it's totally different because you can't get from the western part of the state to Cape Cod very easily.
Right.
So the 4-year term does make sense as far as campaign-wise. In New Bedford, I can get from here to there in 20 minutes from both ends of the city, so there's no comparison. Part of the process of elections, mayoral elections, is the debate. I know you're a staunch supporter of the 2-year term. A lot of people have made other points. I actually invited some guests on to debate you on both, but they declined for whatever reason. I think it would have been a great opportunity to hear both sides face to face. Can you just go into, again, why you feel it is a mistake, as you put it, for the citizens to vote themselves out of electing a mayor every 2 years rather than now going to the 4-year term? Why do you feel it's a mistake for a citizen to vote that way?
So I'd be happy to do that. First, the question is worded pretty simply. It says something like, should the mayor's term in New Bedford be a 4-year term? The answer should be no. Everyone should vote no, that as far as I'm concerned. This is my opinion. Make up your own minds, but I believe everyone should vote no. So don't in any way confuse this question and somehow, if you're against it, vote yes, thinking that the current term is 4, because while the language is very simple, it also, if you sat there and started thinking about it, you may not understand the question. The answer to the question, as far as I'm concerned, and usually you don't want to give people the answers to questions, from my perspective now, this is me. But the answer is no. It's N and it's O. It's no. It changes the fundamental form of our government, and it's very interesting to me, because it took a lot of time and effort to get the signature, certainly, and it's before the voters. But it is a very, very fundamental change in our government. It takes the mayor's term and doubles it from 2 to 4 years. Now, you can say to me, well, didn't we do that 100 years ago? And yeah, we went from 1 to 2 years. 2 years seems to be about right. And many more, the great majority of cities in our state, and the great majority of the gateway cities have 2-year terms. And it's pretty simple why. You're the executive of the city. You work for the people. The people get to grade you. The people are the people that you every day are hopefully in their neighborhoods working for. At a certain point, they get to say if they think you're doing a good job, or they think they'd like you to do a little different. One way that they can exercise that is by going down to City Hall, having access to you. If you know that you're subject to a review every 2 years, they're going to have access to you. The most ironic thing about the campaign of this particular year is that we haven't heard too much from the current administration about what their vision has been, what they've accomplished, whatever. In the last 30 days, you've heard more about it. than you had in the previous 23 months.
Yes, sir.
So now you'd only hear about it 3.5 years later. You need to hear about it all the time. It's important that the mayor communicate. The mayor's got to get better at communicating. Our mayor now has got to get better at communicating to the people. The people then get an opportunity to let him know, do they like that budget? Okay, every 2 years they can grade the budgets, not every 4. Are they happy with the direction of the school system and the school budget? Every 2 years they get an opportunity to weigh in. Are they happy with taxes? Do they think taxes are going up at a rate that's not sustainable? Every 2 years they can weigh in at the ballot box. Do they think that pothole's been sitting on the corner now for 6 months is something that they're concerned about? Well, you know, again, press the administration, and every 2 years you get to vote. On taxes, crime, education, neighborhood revitalization, economic development, on lights, on potholes, on infrastructure, waiting every 4 years to have that debate, to have that discussion, to have somebody scrambling saying, gee, I better let the voters know. A 4-year period is literally a lifetime when it comes to crime, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to job creation, whatever it might be. So what you need to do is you hold the person who works to you accountable. The way you do it, this check and balance, is by the voting booth. The voting booth in our case is every 2 years we have the opportunity to let the mayor know that we want, either if we're supporting but through the debates we've let him know or she know where we're going, and make them a better candidate. But they have to be accountable to the people. If you give a mayor a 4-year term, they're going to sit up at City Hall, and those ideas that you want to go in and explain to the mayor aren't going to be as pressing, because the mayor is going to say, hey, I'll get to that in 3 years. I don't have to worry about it. The complaint that you might have, again, gets pushed off to the side. You want your government every day to realize they work for the people. So the idea that we would say to people, we want you to vote to give up your right to vote. We want you to vote yes, which means I will give up my right to vote every 2 years and shift it to 4 years. It's just not something that's in the interest of the people. Now, is it in the interest of a few group of people? It might be. The people who can always get in and out of City Hall, it might be in their interest to know that I got a mayor now in for 4 years. The other thing that is very troubling about it.
That was my next question. This is being pushed by a group, New Bedford Forward. Nobody really knows much about them. And nobody knows the motive behind it. They're stating that a 4-year term, a mayor can start his project and see it through. And I don't see that being that big of a deal. I mean, they're still completing projects that you started.
Right, so you do a pass-off. The
Yeah.
next administration and any major projects, obviously, they continue to work on and finish up. This isn't in the best interest of the people in general. It may be in the interest of a mayor who doesn't want to be out there with the people or campaigning. But if you run for mayor, you got to be out there campaigning. You got to understand the people are your lifeblood. They're where you get your support. They're the people you serve. You are a public servant. So there may be a small group. There may be businesses say, well, we would like a 4-year term because there's stability. In New Bedford, we have stability. There's only been twice in our lifetimes where the mayor hasn't been elected after after his first term.
Yeah,
and it's only been once, actually. It was George Rogers.
Yep.
Brian Lawler served the partial term of Jack Markey and then served a full term and then was not reelected. That's a great thing. That's the checks and balances. People are able to weigh in and say, I just think we need to go in a different direction. So I'm again, I just want to say, Chris, and I don't want to overemphasize this. We can talk about get out the vote later and why it's so important to vote. But assuming everyone's going to vote, everyone's going to read this question. I served as mayor. I've been a citizen of this city since 1978. I love this city. I love the people in it. I love the way it works. The form of government we have is a strong mayor. We don't need to make the mayor stronger.
Yeah.
Okay, by saying to him, you don't have to run.
You're not accountable now
Other than
for
every
another
4
couple
years.
Yeah. We got a couple questions. Seems going back and forth in the comments section. One is saying, so Mayor Lang, admits 2-year terms lead to short-term thinking. I don't think that's what you said.
Not only
That's
did I
the
not,
case for a 4-year term.
yeah, so not only did I not say that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But that's absolutely erroneous. It means it leads to thinking every day on how do I do a better
It's
job
the
to
exact
serve the
opposite
people.
of what he said.
It's the opposite of what I just said, yeah.
Exactly. And we also have from Walter Pyers. What's your motive? You have been coming out strong lately, but in fairness, you have also been releasing stuff over the past year on your website.
I've been 3 days after I left office, I talked about DESE, the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, coming out with statements against gateway cities that were completely inappropriate to moving forward and building, building great educational systems. So, but I didn't swallow some sort of gag order or anything when I left office. In fact, I said I was going to go out and anything that I thought was important to speak about, I would. Now, why do I think this is important? Because this is a change in the fundamental system in our government that's being done over a 30-day period, and
Yes,
maybe
sir.
there's been a couple of hours worth of talk about it. Why would you? Let's put it this way. I've weighed in on everything from MCAS to Second Amendment rights, to our foreign policy, to President Trump, to Hillary Clinton, to the DNC. To whether or not our economic development process in New Bedford is moving forward, to our schools. This now, the fundamental form of government, if I took a powder on this one, I don't think it's credible to speak about any other issue.
Absolutely. I got another question. If the 4-year term does pass, you said that you thought, there might be, the door's open for running at some position at our last interview. You didn't specifically say mayor. But if this passes and the term is now brought to 4 years rather than 2, is that a game changer? Does that mean that Scott Lane's not running for mayor of New Bedford again, or does that not factor in at the moment?
Nothing like that would ever factor in. Don't think about the person who holds office. Think about you as a voter and what your rights are and how you need to input into our government, which means through the vote. If the voters on Tuesday dramatically vote for the 4-year term, then that's going to be the form of government, and everyone's going to have to deal with it. And if they want to run for mayor, then they're going to have to deal with 4-year term versus 2-year term versus whatever.
Yes, sir.
Do not think about the candidates when you go to vote on change the Constitution or the charter of our city, which is what this vote does.
It absolutely does.
If put it this way, Chris, if you now said to people, by this vote, you're changing the charter of the city, you're changing the Constitution of the city, people might look at it and say, gee, I don't even know enough about it.
It's a bigger deal if you put it that way.
Oh, yeah, this is a big deal. This is not a minor point. This is a big deal.
Yeah, people aren't quite getting the full story. If, like you said, it's happened overnight, basically, this whole in the past 30, 45 days.
I didn't
This
expect
this is really pushed out where it wasn't even a
Right.
thought for months. This is something that should be debated for about a year,
There was-
rather than just at the 11th hour, let's start talking about it.
Right, put it this way. You had an article in the paper in the spring saying that they thought it was a good idea to try and get the signatures. Then they had an article in the middle of summer, a short article that said they're in the process of getting the signatures, and the Chamber of Commerce was now going to be heavily involved in getting the signatures. Then they had a short article that said they got the signatures. And then there's been an article in the newspaper saying should it be 2 or 4 years.
Yeah.
This is something that a poli-sci class would take, a year to look at and
Absolutely,
study
absolutely.
to try and figure out if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
I can tell you now, based on serving as mayor, you take the people away from that check and balance, that's not a good thing.
I'm all about limited government. I'm all about term limits. I'm all about all that stuff. And by going to 4 years, you're taking away from the people's power. That's my personal opinion. The power to vote and the power to get somebody out faster than later, sooner than later. When it's too late, you don't, a 4-year term, a guy can start really messing up in his second year, and now you got 2 years of a bad path that you're going to go down. This way, it kind of protects, I'll call the voter the consumer at that point.
Right. So
Think of it like you're purchasing something and you're giving away 2 years of your warranty. That's the way I look at the 2-year vote versus the 4-year vote.
well, the long-term contracts for athletes usually don't work, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what it comes
They
down to.
never work.
Yeah, but here's what I want to say, though, that's important. I heard the other day the idea that, well, if we pass this and it's a 4-year term, then we can go ahead and put a recall provision in. That's a nightmare.
It is.
You have a recall provision, and it's every 2 years.
Yes.
If you're not happy, vote to take the person out of the office and put someone else in.
You don't want to recall your mayor. It's
completely
messy,
unstable,
It's
you know?
unstable. It's not good for the city. It's not good for the everyday operations of the city. We're going to move on, Mayor, because we can keep talking about this for a while. Kind of along the same lines where you discussed the current mayor coming out just in the past couple months. He hasn't been around for 23 months, your words, basically.
Explaining to the people what's going on.
Explaining to the people what's going on.
I'm sure he's there every
No,
day.
he's doing his job.
Yeah.
That I agree with. A lot of good things have happened during his term. I'm not going to take anything away from Mayor Mitchell. I think he's doing a pretty good job. Do you feel slighted at all by some of your accomplishments being used by Mayor Mitchell as his accomplishments? He's saying the unfinished projects that we discussed, the Harbor Walk, he's taking pictures up there, the Route 18 development, a lot of the downtown stuff. That's Mayor Lang's babies. They've now grown up.
Yeah, so
He's taking credit for that. Do you feel slighted at all by that?
I think I've got a really good relationship with the people in the city.
Yeah.
And the people in the city have always respected me. And I kept in touch with the people day in, day out as to what we were doing and what our planning was, and we produced, reports to the city every year. So I kind of feel that when I look at something and it's been now completed under Mayor Mitchell, first of all, I'm thankful that it's been completed, and I feel good about the fact that they're completing it. I also feel that people understand if they go take a walk on the, Harbor Walk, I would hope that they think about all the city workers who did such a great job. I would hope that they would, think that this is a great accomplishment in the administration. But I also don't have any doubt they're walking there saying, I remember when, Scott Lang first proposed this and fought with the Army Corps to make sure we could do it, and then got the first grant for it.
That's something that you'd hope, but I don't feel that a lot of people do realize that you had a lot to do with that, and most of the birth of the Harbor Walk started with you.
So, but the funny thing is though that say 20 years from now, someone else will take a picture on it and they'll be going, gee, they put on new railing, and they'll be like this,
Yeah, exactly.
saying thank you. So
Yeah.
that's the way it is in government. You do the best you can, you work for the people, you try your hardest, you keep moving.
Yeah.
So I don't feel slighted about it.
Okay. Next question from Orlando Riley Jr. If you're not interested in running for mayor, which you haven't said, again, have you ever considered running for another position within the state, such as Senator Montigny's spot?
The answer to that, I've thought that at some point I'll run for office again, but I haven't said to myself there's a certain position from a local standpoint that I would run for other than mayor. I love the idea that on a day-to-day basis you basically say, can we get this done, fill that pothole, change that light bulb, keep the cost down, whatever it might be, negotiate a better contract, get out there and help the people in any way. I love that aspect of it. Every day there is a demonstrable result in the people's interest. I love that. In the legislative system that we have at the State House right now, we have representatives, we have senators, and then you have the Speaker and you have the President. And our representatives and our senators work to support the Speaker and the President. But when you get up to Boston, basically when, other than your committee meetings, things like that, when comes time to make that final decision, you're basically a cast of many, many people, and you never know if you can really effectuate the change or the help of the citizen that you want. So it's a different type of, a job.
Yeah.
And
It holds a special place in your heart.
Mayor, yeah. I can tell you the state reps, the senators I always got along with really well. They have a different job than the job I did,
Yeah, you're the chief executive.
For one of the great mid-sized cities in the country, it's the best job in America. Whether Charlie Perry gets elected or John Mitchell gets elected, they're about to again begin either a new term or begin a brand new adventure, if it was Perry, in the greatest job in America.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear that you still feel that way about our city. It's nice to see somebody of your accomplishments and your standing in this area still feel that strongly about the city of New Bedford. It's a lot of people don't always. It's easier to see the negative of what's happening in the city, and you still have a high respect and a high view of what the city actually is and what it is capable of.
This city's heights haven't been reached, and we can, as people work together, if they work together and the government helps, empowers people, finds out what the issues are and moves forward, every neighborhood in the city can accomplish what it needs to be a safe, productive, wholesome, attractive neighborhood, right? And that's what you have to approach it, street by street, block by block. And I think that the people have the ability to do that. The people, mayors come and go. People are here. People are the best people that I've ever been associated with, lived with. It's just a great city.
We're going to move on. We have a couple questions about the school system right now.
Okay.
One of them is teacher morale is extremely low right now. That is a fact. I can tell you that because I know. I'm married to one. She loves the challenge of the urban school.
Thank you for teaching in New Bedford.
Gosh, I should thank her for a lot more than that. Like you, she's my, I don't know if you said you're 90% better half.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
gig.
My wife's a great woman and a wonderful educator. She loves her children, loves the kids. She doesn't do it for any other reason than the kids that struggle. Kids that are, she actually gravitates towards the harder children. She tells me all the time. Mm-hmm. I said, she comes home with bad days, and I say, why don't you just go to Dartmouth? I can get you into Dartmouth,
Yeah.
She says, that would be so boring for me. It would be not challenging for me.
That's the kind of teacher we always want.
She says that she wants to stay in New Bedford for those reasons. But she also does say that teacher morale is extremely low right now. I've discussed this with Josh Amaral, school committee member. I've reached out to Chris Cotter as well. And several other teachers that I know. It is down, it is low, and retention is going to be a problem at some point. How do you feel about that, and what do you think some ideas are that we could inject into the current stream of candidates that we have right now? And what would you tell the newly elected mayor or the incumbent or the guys running in city council at large or the ward councils or the school committee? Give us 2 points that former Mayor Lang has that could actually help them move the school department in a great direction to get morale and retention up.
So say 1 minute about the past and then everything else about the future. I believe this idea that the state was about to take us over is completely phony. I know it's phony. So the idea that we had to do all these terrible things to our teachers, our administrators, in order to make major changes to move forward was a straw dog. A straw dog that was set up by the state, and the fact is that the administration bought into it. That has set us back dramatically. We lost an awful lot of great teachers, lost an awful lot of great administrators. We got so preoccupied with teaching to the test that we lost sight of the fact that we're teaching kids. Well, I went up to the State House and testified a couple of years ago. I said, I see the standardized test, but I've never seen a standardized kid. We have, if you're in school, I want the absolutely finest education for every student. I want them to have the ability to study all the basic core subjects, extremely important, but I want them to absolutely be turned into great citizens. I want them to have the ability to study health. I want a library system that works. I want great extracurricular activities. I want outside type of activities. I want reading, writing, arithmetic, script, everything that you need to be a person who is learned, who's well educated, and can move forward. I want every kid valued. I want every teacher valued. So in other words, if I know there may be a time where I look into a classroom, your wife does, and says, I think that kid could end up being #1 in his class at the finest college in America, right? That's great, and that kid, you want to make sure everything that you do possible to see them achieve that goal. But I also want the kid who we know is going to, may be challenged, may have a tough time because of family issues or because they have some sort of a mild or major learning disability. I want them to be educated so that they are absolutely productive member of our society, so that on any given day, we know that we will count on them to do something. I don't want anybody, there's no child left behind. We're leaving thousands of kids behind. The system is set up to leave kids behind. When you stamp a number on their heads beginning in 4th grade, and again, I'm going to do this, it hurts like heck, but when you stamp these kids like that with a stamp on their head, it predetermines where they will be when they're in 12th grade. All right, it is almost a struggle. It's another encumbrance that they have to go through. Let the teachers teach. Let the teachers love the kids and see that they can become the best student possible. You got to start reading with your kid literally before kindergarten.
Absolutely.
Reading is the key. Reading is the key. If a child can't read well, then we're always struggling to make sure they can read well, right? I want kids to be bilingual. I want brain surgeons, but I want the best chefs. I want the best streetcar conducters. I want
They're
everyone.
all necessary.
Absolutely. The brain surgeon, when he's got to get up or she's got to get up, to their job, they're looking around to find a mechanic to fix their car. At that point, the most important person is the mechanic. And if the mechanic says, "I need a cup of coffee," it's the person who makes the coffee. And when the person who makes the coffee says, "We don't have coffee today," it's the guy who delivers it. So our society, us as people, are all intertwined, and the school system has forgotten about that. So I would say that
That's a wonderful
the
point.
people that you talk to are the teachers and the parents. What do you want out of your school system? If you don't want great citizens, then we're missing the ball. If you don't want kids to love school, have fun, you're missing the ball. If you think it makes more sense to teach them how to pass a bubble test than it is to teach them how to be great, productive members of our society, then you've completely missed the ball. So I feel that our school system, we've lost a ton of teachers. We now have new teachers. I don't want to lose them. I want them to be empowered. I don't want a heavy-handed system, a school administration, micromanaging to the point because someone is 3 bubble answers short of being able to say that we're all proficient. Don't spend the time on teaching them how to bubble. Spend the time on teaching them how to learn, how to think, how to interact with each other, how to care about each other, how to be nonviolent. That's how you build a city. That's how you build America.
Would you consider getting the New Bedford public school systems into the vocational type
Absolutely.
of training?
We've talked about that at length as a school committee. I love Greater New Bedford Voc. I think it's a tremendous model. I went down to Philadelphia and spoke about vocational schools right after I left office. So I guess that question before, why am I speaking out? I've been speaking out since 1972, and that's just something that I think if there's a good issue, a good cause, I'm always going to be involved. So I was down in Philly, the Federal Reserve, and one of the things that I spoke about was vocational schools. Vocational schools are always, you got a double talent. You've got the curriculum and you also have a skill.
Absolutely.
It makes all the sense in the world. And the skills are all things that can't be shipped overseas, that you're not going to outsource, Someone has to come to your
And it breaks up the
house.
monotony as a student.
Oh, it's terrific.
The kids actually enjoy getting out of the classroom and using their hands. Woodshop. I remember as a child, stuff they don't have anymore. Woodshop, welding. We actually had a welding we made candle holders, but
Right.
it was still, and it was great. It broke up the day and we learned something else and we used our hands.
And every one of those skills is still needed in our society.
Absolutely. It didn't go away.
No. So I'll give you an example. People will say, well, let's talk about outsourcing. So let's talk about, manufacturing in America. Every factory that we had in this city, other than if you go back to whaling, right? But every factory that we've had in this city produced a product that's produced somewhere else now and shipped into the U.S. So it wasn't as if the jobs went away. It wasn't as if that it was obsolescence. It was that people decided you can basically manufacture a lot cheaper overseas, right? All those jobs obviously have to come back. But the point is, there's some jobs you can't ship out, and that's your day-to-day, I need someone for whatever purpose it might be, coming into my neighborhood or into
Absolutely.
my city. Voc education centers on that. Voc education doesn't teach kids how to make sealing wax or 8-track tapes.
Yeah.
It teaches them basic foundational skills high-tech skills in many cases, where they can compete for jobs in the 21st century.
Absolutely.
So combining it is terrific.
I would love to see that come back into the public school system, the vocation.
You're right. When I was a
And
kid, you know, our high school had the voc component to it, and
you
it
get
was
your car
general
fixed,
high
you know,
school.
and,
Right.
and it actually builds friendships with like-minded individuals. The whole aspect of a vocational section in a school, there's more to it than just learning the skill. There's
Right,
a
so-
lot more to it.
So, Chris, I'll just give a quick example of that. I find people will say, well, the kid didn't pass the MCAS. The kid did everything that the kids at Stang or Tabor or Milton Academy did, okay? Except they didn't pass the MCAS. So the high school diploma, I believe a high school diploma should be a general high school diploma and an MCAS diploma. And if you want to take the MCAS diploma, great. And if you don't, general high school diploma, we'll
That's
give
a
you
great idea.
we'll give you the same credentials as a kid at Stang, a kid at Tabor. But what I wanted to say to you is that when I was in high school, we had, you know, kids behind us that were in shop. We had kids behind us, maybe some kids that immediately went into the service, maybe some kids that missed the last semester, dropped out. I'll see those kids when I go, you know, back home to, you know, where I went to high school. Those kids are all still the pillars of the communities. They have active jobs, businesses, whatever it may be. If we wash these kids out as they were coming out of high school, you would thwart the ability for us to grow. So everybody's got to be valued, and their skill has to be valued.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't.
So as far as teachers go, anything I can do to support that morale issue, I'm always happy to do. But I really think you let the teachers, let the teachers work with the kids. You'll get tremendous results without having this hammer-handed approach that this is the metrics. Slowly it drifts down. You got to teach to the test. That's it. And that's the only way you judge whether a teacher's done well.
Analytics has its purpose.
Oh, yeah, we always took them.
Yeah.
You always test kids to see how they're doing. You don't test kids to
But just
determine
the
what their life
yeah,
is going to
yeah,
be.
the standardization of everything is takes away from the individual. And as far as testing, and you never get to see the best out of some of the children.
No, and more colleges are doing away with any kind of testing. I mean, the whole thing just reaches a point where
Absolutely.
it's nonsensical.
All right, we're running up against the clock here. I'll let you. Actually, we can talk about this. The House Bill 388 that just got introduced. I've asked a couple of the past guests. It's an act enabling cities and towns to extend voting rights to municipal elections to non-citizens of the Commonwealth. It'll be just municipal elections, mayor, everything else. How do you feel about that?
I think, I mean, this could be me, and I'm, a history, political science major, but I would think that you need to be a citizen in order to vote. I mean, I think that we extend an awful lot of rights to non-citizens. We welcome them. We need them. But I also think that there's got to be pathways to citizenship. I think you just can't say we're going to have a group of
I had
people.
Helena on last night from
Yep.
the Immigration
Yep.
Assistance Center. And she feels that as damning as Trump is towards the immigrants, he's the one who's actually going to finally get somebody to vote on some legislation to get this going, to finally stop passing the football back and forth on immigration and figure out what we're going to do with reform.
The fact is that we absolutely have to have that. It comes, Congress is delegated by the Constitution to determine the immigration laws of the country,
Absolutely.
the immigration system. You can't do it on a local level. But I think to vote, I think you have to be a citizen.
Absolutely, I agree. It takes away from the. That's like the final, once you've made it, you became a citizen.
Right.
To go to that that booth and pull that lever, this is a term for it, but to finally get there. We had Manny DeBrino on, and his family I'm from an immigrant family as well, and they're very proud to vote. And Manny talked about how his mom is now, they call it Mrs. Kennedy, because of how proud she is to vote, and in the years it took her to finally pass the test to become a citizen, the written test and all that, and how the pride it brought her,
So can we talk about that for 1 minute?
Sure, absolutely.
So I've never missed a vote in my life, right? The first time I was able to vote was when I was 21. I've never missed a vote in my life. I look at voting as an absolute obligation.
Absolutely.
Whether I'm for or against anybody, I look at it as an obligation as an American to let people know how I feel about candidates. If there's questions on the ballot, I'll vote as well. I also know that since the inception of our country, people have died to preserve basic rights for us, and one of those basic rights, the most fundamental right, okay, when it comes to government, is the right to vote. In New Bedford, we have young men and women throughout our history have given up their lives so that we can live free and have the right to vote. Right now, we have New Bedford citizens overseas serving the armed forces, men and women, who are protecting our basic rights and our right to vote. On Tuesday, November 7th, which is this Tuesday, our polls are going to be open 13 hours, from early in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. You've got to go vote. You've got to bring your kids, show them what it's like to be proud, like you're talking about, okay, with Manny's mom, like your parents, my parents. You go and you vote. It takes a few minutes. The people who work in the voting precincts get you in and out very quickly. You're going to vote on very important issues.
Especially this election.
Which is the mayor's race. You've got city council races. You have the at-large city council. You have the school committee, you have assessors. It's a local election that needs everybody's support, focus, understanding. Decide who you support. It doesn't matter who you support. God bless you. I respect you. Go vote. If you bring your kids, let them know what you're doing. Explain to them. Say to them, do for them what we always had done in school, which is the most important thing you can do as an American is stand up and exercise your right to vote. And that's something I hope people will do. I'd like to see a big turnout on
I think the
Tuesday.
numbers are a little skewed. We discussed that in the past. All right,
Right,
we're running up
absolutely.
against the clock. I got two final questions for you. One on a local, actually two final questions on a local level, and then we're going to talk about the DNC fiasco that Donna Brazil released yesterday. I know that you were working with the DNC for years on a
Right.
national level, so I want to get to that. I want to hear your take on it. As far as the final two questions, are there any candidate endorsements from any of the elections that we have coming up on Tuesday?
I believe that the voters make the choice. I don't endorse. I may endorse on a national level or on a state level, but locally, I think everyone. I admire anyone who's running. I think people hopefully have participated in the debates. Voters should become acquainted with the people. I'll give contributions to different counselors that I think are doing a great job. I always am happy to do that. I know it takes a little bit of money to get your message out, but I want the voters to make their decision. They don't need me to tell them how to vote. I am saying on one issue, and that pleases that referendum on whether it becomes a 2 or 4 year term. I'm voting no. I hope they'll consider to vote no.
All right. And my final question as far as the local election comes from a follower on our page. You win the election on Tuesday as mayor. What is the first thing you do for the city of New Bedford?
I'd bring in, if I won, I'd bring in all the, now, let's put it, if I won, I'll tell you exactly what I did. I brought in every department head in the city. I explained to them exactly what I expect, which is a good, hard day's work doing their best for the people of the city, and let's move forward. And then ask them for every idea they have on how we can be a better government. So I would sit down and listen. I would spend 2 months listening. Okay, I'd say my only rule is we're going to do everything we can to make this the best city possible for the people who live in it. Now, please, so that means safe, public safety, education, economic development, neighborhood revitalization. Now, tell me what I need to know. Tell me what I should be thinking about, and tell me how we can do a better job. So that's what I would do.
Perfect. Now let's move on to the fiasco known as the Democratic National Committee, something you've been part of since the 70s.
Right.
I looked back and I did a little research on you, and you've been heavily involved with the DNC for quite some time
Hanging
now.
on the DNC from 72 to 73, and then began working at the DNC in 1973.
Something I never knew. I was actually a Democratic delegate back in my early 20s. I've since moved more towards the independent side, a little right of independent, to be quite honest. They basically just manipulated the system financially and didn't give Bernie Sanders a shot in this past eletion.
We gave
And
no one a shot.
They gave nobody
No
a shot. It was the Hillary Clinton show from the beginning. It was bought, paid for,
Right.
and signed, sealed, and delivered. And it turns out she was a horrible candidate. And
It was a coronation for someone who couldn't get elected.
absolutely. Give us some thoughts. I know that I had listened to you speaking about this, are now calling for the people to stop donating to the DNC until this is all squared away.
I know. So let me tell you a few things. I've been hitting the DNC really hard now for the past, well, since before the election, 2 years ago, because I saw this coming a mile away. I used to run the delegate selection system, the election system for the Democratic National Committee. So I saw this thing was fixed. And then the debates were fixed. And then the exchange that Sanders had to make in order to get debates was scripted, all right? So the whole thing just stunk to high heaven. And I knew that Hillary Clinton was unelectable, could never get elected. The only person, in my opinion, that Trump could beat was Hillary Clinton, all right? And I think that's exactly what happened. And I can tell you, and by the way, I don't know that Trump would have been nominated if Clinton hadn't been running. You know, I mean, I just think
he was the antithesis.
Yeah, the two were, you know, two bookends here. But what it comes down to now is I've asked for a number of different things. With the chair of the DNC, I wanted someone who pledged neutrality, someone who would run a party system that had integrity, that people could trust. Tom Perez was elected. I think now Tom Perez should resign.
Absolutely.
Okay, based on the fact that Donna Brazile came up with these revelations rather than Tom Perez, the day he took office after a couple of weeks, got up and said,
he knew this.
This is where we are. The idea that it's now being exposed. We've also lost 5 races. We'll see what happens in New Jersey and Virginia this coming Tuesday, but the DNC has been involved in those. The DNC sends out a day-to-day email to everyone who they've got on their list saying, please contribute. I wouldn't give them a dime. What I want is a fair and open delegate selection system that's codified again in the charter. I want a chair that is completely honest with the Democrats. I want a midterm conference next summer where the Democrats come together as delegates elected within a system, and that they come up with a platform for the party, a credo for the party, and they march forward for 18. And then they have the same type of atmosphere as they go into the 20 nominating process. I think it can be done. I think it's got to be done. Right now, if you don't clean house, the Democratic National Committee is never going to be able to get off the floor.
I don't think they have a chance in 18, to be honest with you.
Never have. Well, if put it this way, 18 is going to be up to individual candidates. The DNC is not going to be much help to any individual candidates the way it's comprised now and the attitude that people have towards it now, because there was distrust, lack of integrity, but now it's all confirmed. I wrote about it a year ago. People looked at it and said, that's interesting. The guy worked there. Maybe there's something to it. The thing is, go at scottwlang.com if anybody's interested, and any kids are interested. Go read my piece about the Democratic Party, the pathway forward, that I wrote last November, and it talked about the idea that this whole thing was manipulated in a way that people should feel that the Democratic Party, if you're unhappy with Trump, blame the DNC. So the other thing about the Democratic Party,
1 minute left.
Nancy Pelosi's got to go, not from Congress, but as the leader.
As the leader,
okay?
yeah.
Chuck Schumer shouldn't be the leader in the Senate. We need people, fresh faces. I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about fresh faces. I think the Democratic Party needs to sit down and say, what are our core beliefs? If our core beliefs are the people of this country and improving their lot, then we better start changing the way we have presented ourselves over the last 20 years. DNC completely sold out to the consultants, the lobbyists, the manipulators, the status quo, and we have a major problem now.
I don't like the pathway that the DNC is going, has been going. So for me to keep those people up is almost a good thing, because it's not what I want, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People don't want it either.
No.
Their own people, they just keep losing races and losing races. At some point, it's the definition of insanity. They keep doing the same thing, and they just keep punching the head. They keep doing your head slap, and it's crazy.
I can only do that once a show,
Right.
by the way.
Hey, Milling, I got to go pick up my son.
Oh,
I
do
really
that.
appreciate you coming. You got 1 minute. Anything you want to talk about?
What I would just say is this: I think the city is a great city. I think the people in this city make the difference. I don't think it's our history, culture, architecture are really important, but it's the people. And I think we need to remember that. If we work together, we can get a lot done. If we're in a situation where we're all divided, we can't get a damn thing done. I think that whatever happens with the mayor's race, whatever happens with the down ballot races, people need to pull together. People need to start attacking problems. We know we have a crime issue. we got to work together to knock it out.
Yep.
We know we have an education issue. We know we have an economic development issue. All right, our economic development is lagging. We got to get it moving again.
Yes, sir.
And as far as neighborhoods go, there's no excuse for having a TV sitting on a corner or having a pothole or having trash around. Everybody's got to get together, call in DPW, ask them to get that out of there. Okay, you shouldn't have to wait for ABC to come around every 2 weeks to
Absolutely.
pick something up. Let's keep the city looking like we have pride in the city, so
Absolutely.
people respect us.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lang. Ladies and gentlemen of New Bedford, you're lucky enough to have people that care like Mayor Lang that come on their own time to discuss the issues and to get you educated. You're actually very lucky to have places like New Bedford Guy and the other Facebook pages that have been bringing you nonstop coverage of local issues to educate you further on how you should vote and to learn about the candidates and to be involved. Take advantage of all these opportunities. You live in a great city with a lot of people who, crime and this and that. There's a lot worse places. Trust me. I've been there. I've seen it. It's only going to get better if you want it to be better. It's only going to get worse if you're not going to do anything about it, and you're not going to get out there and vote, and you're not going to get out there and be positive. Do your kids a favor. Do your grandchildren a favor. Get educated. Learn about your candidates. Learn about the issues, and vote. Voting is your number one civic duty as a U.S. citizen, and you should take it as a priority as a U.S. citizen. It's the oxygen of the U.S. citizen, is your right to vote. A lot of people don't take advantage of that, and it's a shame. Get out there Tuesday night and vote. Tonight, we also check our events page. We're doing the Ward 2, 1, and school committee debates on our live stream again. Another opportunity to get out and learn something about your candidates. Any questions, chris@newbedfordguide.com. I'll be sure to lead you in the right path, the right direction. We'll also be doing some election night coverage here. 2 nights this week, 2 nights next week. I'll be live at the election with Mike and Josh and giving you guys the results. Again, enjoy your weekend. Take advantage of all your opportunities in this city and be a positive person in this city. Help out your neighbors and get out and vote. Thank you very much, New Bedford.